I'm Emily Hall, and I'm Vice Chairperson of the Fair Housing Center. Our chairperson could not be here, so I'm filling in a little bit. Anyway, I want to welcome everyone here to help us celebrate and honor some very special people, our honorees, who have been the best friend of the Fair Housing Center and of fair housing and rights, civil rights. First, I want to introduce you to Margaret Brown, who's our director. Margaret, you want to introduce the staff?
Thanks again for coming. We have Fair Housing Center staff. A few of them are here. I'd like to ask them to stand up at this time, please. One of them was already standing. That's Tim Davis has been taking pictures. Tim's always standing. We have had to do some adjustments to the program. First of all, our first honoree is supposed to be the Honorable Claudia Morcum, but if you don't mind, Your Honor, I asked your indulgence because our third honoree has a plane to catch back to Washington, D.C., so we're going to ask, allow us to change the order a little bit for that purpose. And you want to say anything else?
Well, just to thank you for coming. I think most of you are familiar with the Fair Housing Center and how we got started. We have for many years honored our housing and banking industry people who have been supportive of fair housing. A few years ago, we thought, well, you know, we couldn't do it without our attorneys. So we need to give them some acknowledgement. And so we started in 2008 that we wanted to be able to really acknowledge those attorneys and judges and folks who have been really supportive and who have really carried through and helped us, because our ultimate goal is to go out of business, and we wouldn't be able to do that without them. So.
Okay. Some of you may realize that the Tigers are playing tonight. And this next honoree was supposed to be jointly presented by myself and John Obie, who is probably, if he's not the Tigers' biggest fan, he's probably in the top 10, I would say. And he said that as much as he loves his fair housing family, he loves his Tiger family almost as much. In his defense, both he and John Relman and Steve Tom Koviak and Chewy Corregas spent the entire day training law students, attorneys, some relatively new to the game, some very, very experienced attorneys, but interested in doing something different, something new. So from 9 o'clock a.m. to 4 p.m. today, they participated in the training, and our guest speaker was Ms. Natalie Wiley. You want to raise your hand? So the training, I think, and I'm biased, of course, went off extremely well. So John Obie's not here, but I am. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our honoree. Since 1986, Mr. Relman has represented scores of plaintiffs and public interest organizations and individual and class action discrimination cases in federal court. From 1989 to 1999, Mr. Relman served as a project director of the Fair Housing Project at the Washington Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights and Urban Affairs. Under his leadership, the project achieved national recognition, winning some of the largest housing, lending, and public accommodation discrimination jury verdicts and settlements obtained in the country. In 1986 to 1989, Mr. Relman worked as a staff attorney for the National Office of the Lawyers Committee. Prior to joining the committee, he clerked for the Honorable Sam J. Ervin III in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit, and the Honorable Joyce Haynes Green of the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia. He gave us a quick overview of some of his cases this morning, today. So he shared with us some of his case analysis, some of his strategies, and it became readily apparent to me why he's been so successful. I think everyone truly appreciated his contribution. We here at the Fair Housing Center appreciate him because he agreed this year to serve as one of our co-chairs for our fundraising drive for last fall. So we truly appreciate that. And to come here and make this class for us was, over and above. So we're going to ask you to come forward now. Step over here. Yeah. And we have a small token. Of our appreciation. I hope you can fit it into your carry-on or something. Can you take a picture?
Thank you. Margaret, thank you so much, and everybody here. I just can't tell you, this is just wonderful to be able to come out here and have a chance to speak with all of the attorneys who are so interested in doing fair housing work and have a chance to give them little thoughts and ideas about how we can make these cases successful. I'm thrilled to do what I can to help out the Fair Housing Center here in Detroit. I think there's a unique opportunity at this time with Detroit in a new phase now of rebuilding, hopefully building a better, stronger city on a better foundation. And it means that fair housing is vitally important as you go forward. There's a new opportunity to make your mark and to stake your place. As people come back into the city, and I've talked to Margaret about this, as people come back into the city and find ways to build a home here, to hopefully find profitable basis to rebuild the community here, it's vitally important that this become, once again, a diverse community. That fair housing be first and foremost as people come in, that we make sure that racial understanding and awareness and harmony is something that once again becomes part of Detroit's fabric. And I think the Fair Housing Center has a long history and a unique place here. Now we have a great moment. We can raise money, we can build the awareness and the profile for the Fair Housing Center, make it clear to the people who are coming in now with investment dollars that they need to partner with the Fair Housing Center to create a new future here, that they need the Fair Housing Center to make sure that they're on the right side of fair housing, that they're helping to promote a stable and diverse community here. I think that's one of the greatest things that we can do going forward. And that's why one of the reasons why I've had a lot of ties here. I knew Cliff Schrupp very well. Mike Olsher and I have known each other for many years. Working in fair housing, and so many other people. Julie Levy taught in her class at Michigan, and so glad, and of course people on our firm have worked on cases with her, and I'm so glad that she's been elevated now to be a judge. That nothing could be better for fair housing and for all the issues we care about, and for justice generally, because Judy is going to be a judge. Levy is going to be a great judge. Following a great tradition. So there's a wonderful base here, and I'm very honored and proud that you would welcome me to it. But I really see it as a great opportunity, and that's why I've taken the time, because I really want to do what I can to see if we can move things forward, raise more money, build the profile, make the Justice Center even more of an important partner and player for all the people coming back into the city. And that's what I told Margaret I would try and help in a small way to do. If I can lend a little bit of a hand doing that, that's what I want to do. I think today was a start, and Margaret, congratulations on a great training you put together and a great gathering here. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. And this is a beautiful, beautiful award. It's beautiful. I really appreciate it, and this will go in my office and hang in a place of prominence, so thank you.
There are two staff members before Emily comes back that didn't come in, so you can recognize the staff. I know you saw them when you came in, but and Z, I don't know why you didn't stand up. Anyway, it takes a lot of work to pull this morning and this afternoon's event together, so it couldn't be done without their diligent effort. So. Okay, so our next presenter, I'm going to turn this back over to Emily. Okay.
Thank you very much. The next person that we want to honor is Judge Claudia. I was thinking, well, even though we were talking about this in the car coming over. Judge Claudia House Morcum. And I understand, Linda, you're going to introduce her because we're missing someone else.
It's the Tigers. Blame it on the Tigers. Let them win.
As long as they win,
Good evening, everyone. Would you like to put this up?
Yeah.
All righty. I'm going to start off by saying it's an honor for me to be able to, on behalf of the Fair Housing Center, present this award to Judge Claudia House Morcum, who can be described as follows: a freedom fighter, a trailblazer, a jurist, a national and international human rights activist, and I personally know a jazz enthusiast. Freedom fighter. After Judge Morcum graduated from Wayne State Law School, and I'm not going to say the year, unless you want me to, you should be proud of the year that you graduated from law school.
I'm lucky I'm still alive.
There it is. I hope I can. Aren't we all in this room? In 1956, she graduated from Wayne State Law School, and there it is. And really began working immediately as an activist. In the early 60s, she worked with the historic Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And in 1964, Judge Morcum answered the call that was sent specifically to lawyers to come to Jackson, Mississippi on a rotating basis for a week to deal with the multitude of injustices that were taking place there. We're talking everything from voter intimidation, all segregated public facilities, various arrests based on false charges. Judge Morcum answered the call, signed up for a week, went down there, but after that 1 week of service, I am told, Judge Morcum came back to Detroit, packed her bags, and returned to Jackson, Mississippi to become the Southern Regional Director for the National Lawyers Guild program, where she facilitated a massive voter registration movement and worked to desegregate public facilities throughout Mississippi. Indeed, a freedom fighter. A trailblazer. Judge Morcum is a woman of many firsts, breaking gender barriers. Judge Morcum was the first African-American woman to work in the nation's first integrated law firm, of course, that being the Goodman, Crockett, Eaton, Robin Vital firm in the early 1960s, right here in Detroit. In 1966, she became the founding director of the Wayne County Neighborhood Legal Services, ensuring the provision of legal services for those who could not afford them. Judge Morcum was the first African-American woman to be appointed to the Wayne County Circuit Court in 1983. A jurist. In 1972, Judge Morcum began an 11-year career as the administrative law judge for the Michigan Department of Labor, specifically within the Bureau of workers' disability compensation. Adding this experience and service to her work on the circuit court, Judge Morcum's work as a jurist has spanned 26 years. As a judge on the circuit court, she recognized equal access to housing as a basic and essential right, and also as an important component of the civil rights agenda, which she continued to advance. A national and international human rights activist, Judge Morcum has served as a delegate to the United Nations Council on Human Rights. She has participated in many international forums. One that I'll just bring to your attention is in 2001, she participated in the United Nations World Conference Against Racism in South Africa and came home right before the September 11 attacks. She remains active today in her human activist work. Just this past November, she penned a letter to our president, President Obama, urging him to address the imprisonment of 4 Cuban individuals on both legal and humanitarian grounds. So she's very, very active. Certainly the inspirational achievements, and they're inspirational to me, and I think to most everyone in this room, they've not gone unnoticed, and appropriately so. Judge Morcum has received many awards, including the Damon Keith Humanitarian Award, the New York Center for Constitutional Rights Award in recognition of her many civil rights activities, a Certificate of Special Congressional Recognition, U.S. Congressional Recognition. Wayne State University, her alma mater, has awarded to her the Wayne State University Center for Peace and Conflict Studies Peace Award. Outstanding Alumni Award from Wayne State University, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, and the Champion of Justice Award, which is really deemed to be the highest award you can receive from the State Bar of Michigan. So she has been acknowledged, and we are going to continue to do that this evening. Now, I will simply say, in closing, that I did a little bit of research here on Judge Morcum because I just knew that there was so much here. And I will say that I learned that over 40 years ago, she chaired the Free Angela Davis Detroit Committee. Okay? I was like, yes, this is what I'm talking about. So, a little over a year ago, Professor Davis returned to Detroit, and Judge Morcum had the privilege of introducing her. In doing so, she described Professor Davis with words that I find perfectly descriptive of the underlying philosophy which has fueled Judge Morcum's own years of advocacy and commitment. And I will share those words with you. She described Professor Davis as being one who has never forgotten the idea that unless we are united as a community of people, black, white, brown, yellow, we can never really accomplish anything. But if we do unite, we can accomplish everything. And that is Judge Claudia Morcum House. So on behalf of the Fair Housing Center, come up.
I'm not going to say much. Judge say that. I really appreciate this honor today, and I wasn't expecting it. And I'm getting old, and as I get older, I keep saying, how old am I now? Yeah. But I just want to say that there are people in this room that I have worked with different groups all over. The whole family, the Addington family, the daughters and the husbands, and I met them when they were babies, what, 3 years old?
Our daughters, yeah.
Yeah, and have kept with them. It's such a privilege and such an honor to be around these young people who were babies when we met and now are on their own and doing their own thing and making wonderful headways. My dad was in real estate, and he worked for the W.D. Morrison Real Estate Company, and he always knew and felt that people needed to have their homes for their families and for their children. And all of you are doing the same thing separately. Because we know how important it is for people to have homes ready, housing available. I'm very disturbed with what is going on with our state legislators and governor and housing problems that people have, and the problems that young people have of going to school, and they keep upping the, you know, when I went to Wayne Law School, I was very, very fortunate. I got the Black Shriners, I won a contest, the Black Shriners, and it sent me through 3 years of law school, which I think was $1,500, paid for all of my stuff now. It's $75,000 now for kids to go to law school. Nobody can afford that. I mean, it's unbelievable that we are asking our young people today, in every spark of life, to pay to go to school. And our state legislators are making it very, very difficult. We all have to get involved and stay involved so our young people can do what they're meant to do. And we have some brilliant young men, women, boys, and girls. I was fortunate enough a year ago to set up a scholarship at Wayne State Law School, and I have nowhere near what the amount of money it costs for them to go through 3 years of law school, but it helps, and I'm going to continue to try to continue to preserve and get other people who are lawyers to also contribute to our young people to go to law school. Could I just ask everybody that knows me from the time that I was involved in all of your activity, just raise your hand. Because nobody. I keep forgetting. I used to lie about my age all the time. And now I don't have to lie about it because I'm 81 years old. Actually, in another month I'll be 82, but I just wanted to. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it, and I want my friends to be around so that we can celebrate for 82 and maybe a little bit longer. Now, I have a sister who is 89, and she unfortunately has some medical problems, but I said, Gladys can live to be 89 and longer and more than that, then there's hope for me. I'm 10 years behind my brother and sister. I was the baby of the family, as they say. I really don't have much to say, except I just appreciate this so much for being recognized by friends, family, people that I've known for years and hope to know for years more. And thank you so much for this award and for being here and being my friend. I have new friends all the time and friends of long standing, so good to be here.
Ms. Pamela Thompson. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's fabulous to be here among giants, and I mean that. Congratulations, John, and congratulations, Judge Morcum. So my presentation is on behalf of Pam Thompson, and together with Saul Green, who I know planned to be here. I spoke to him earlier, and he was going to be here. So his intention was to be here. This year's recipient of one of the Attorney Appreciation Awards, Pam Thompson, built what would later become the United States Attorney's Office Civil Rights Unit. It started with some fair housing cases. They added some Americans with Disability Act cases, and it grew from there. This happened because Pam, who had been a defensive litigation unit chief, she defended the government when it got sued, raised her hand when asked who in the office would like to assist with handling some civil rights cases. Pam raised her hand then, and she raised it many more times over the years I worked with her, 14 years. Over and over, she raised her hand to do important work. Pam has a strong sense of fairness, and if something is not fair or not just, there is no way it is going to get by Pam. I don't care how big or how little it is. I was fortunate enough to be hired by the U.S. Attorney, Saul Green, in May of 2000, and to be assigned to Pam, to have Pam as my supervisor. Within a few weeks of starting, Pam invited me to join her in handling some of the civil rights cases. I can tell you without a doubt from working with Pam that she is a tremendous lawyer. She taught me how to prepare for the smallest and the biggest of events. And hence I have my notes and prepared because she taught me to be prepared. It is her thorough and meaningful look at documents. She doesn't skip any. Reports, deposition transcripts, and the big picture that sets her aside from others. Pam is also one of the most loyal human beings I know, loyal to her family, to her employer, to her country, and to her friends. And I count myself one of them. And because I recently left the U.S. Attorney's Office, I'm very emotional. Okay. So Pam believes in fair housing and in fair lending. We worked together on the Edward Rose Design and Construction Fair Housing case, and we worked, that was a big one, and we worked on the Old Fifth Third case, and I learned a great deal from her, and I owe her a debt of gratitude for trusting me to join her in that work. But after decades as a successful civil litigator, Pam raised her hand in the office when someone was needed to handle criminal civil rights cases. For lawyers in the room, you know how daring that move was. It's a whole different rule book. It's a different color. It has different words in it. It has different numbers, a whole different rule book, and a whole different set of laws, and a much higher burden of proof. I've been on the civil side, so I thought it was a daunting undertaking, and she undertook it with grace. Pam took it on, and she actually became one of this country's first prosecutors to bring a hate crime based on sexual orientation under the new federal statute. She understands that in order to live in a community, you have to have laws like the Fair Housing Act to prohibit discrimination. But once you break into a neighborhood, you have to be safe from violent attacks from those who never wanted you there in the first place. Pam also handled a hate crime prosecution against a man who threatened a biracial couple living in Detroit because he did not believe, quote unquote, in the mixing of the races, as antiquated as that may sound. Pam recently retired from the U.S. Attorney's Office, and here is what one lawyer said about her that I think represents, he says it better than I could have said it, and I'll tell you who he is. He is the husband of the U.S. Attorney who recently left here. He said to her, "More important than professional skills, insights, and wisdom you imparted were the life lessons you shared. Your infectious laugh," and anyone who knows Pam knows this laugh, "easygoing manner." I have Pam is so intense, yet also easygoing. And unwavering, I have been supervised by Pam, I assure you, nothing, were absolute, and he says her unwavering support, and that is there for everybody who knows Pam, were absolutely critical to my development as a person. Through you, I learned the importance of humility, of humanity, and the importance of doing justice. And through you, I saw that it was possible to be a great lawyer and a great person. Few lawyers can pull off either one of those, and the fact that you were both was not only amazing, but truly inspirational. Congratulations, Pam, on this well-deserved award. I have a small gift for you before you get the big award, and that is your very own copy of the Department of Justice's Fair Housing Act. It's the only one I'll ever have, and I would like to give it to you. Now you're done.
Thank you. Thank you, Judy. You've made me cry 3 times already. And I don't know that I'm going to be able to get through this without doing it again. Thank you, the Fair Housing Center, Emily, Ward, Margaret. This is an incredible honor, and I'm so appreciative. For those of you who don't know, I just retired February 28th, and so I too am very emotional about all of this stuff. I was absolutely privileged for 20 years to handle civil rights cases at the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Detroit. And the results that we were able to get in our housing discrimination cases and in our hate crime cases during those years were due to the efforts of many people. I'd like to recognize and thank a few of the most special people here this evening. Starting with Saul Green, who was our U.S. Attorney between 1993 and 2000. Saul was the first U.S. Attorney to make civil rights enforcement a priority for the U.S. Attorney's Office. Saul also decided, after having, I think, a few conversations with Cliff Schrupp, that our office needed to do housing discrimination cases, which is something that we had never done before. In all of the other offices, U.S. Attorney's offices at the time, these cases were being handled out of Washington, D.C. But Saul thought, and Cliff agreed, that we needed to be directly involved here in the Detroit U.S. Attorney's Office. Saul also appointed Gary Felder, an AUSA, to be the hate crime prosecutor in the civil division. And I think this was the first time that our office had an AUSA appointed to do civil rights prosecutions and to focus exclusively on those cases. Under Saul's leadership, we were able to get the then record-breaking settlement in the Parkwoods case, which was followed by another settlement in the Marston apartment case. Both of those were pattern and practice, race and familial status discrimination cases. It was also on Saul's watch and Gary Felder that we obtained the first criminal conviction under the Fair Housing Act, and that was the Vartanian case. Some of you who've been around for a long time might, I know, remember that case. That involved, Vartanian was a man who lived in Harper Woods and who was convicted of and sent to federal prison for threatening to kill real estate agents because they were showing homes in his neighborhood to African-American families. So Saul has played a huge role in starting our office on the road to handling civil rights cases, both on the civil and the criminal side. In 2005, when I went to the criminal division to prosecute hate crimes, Judy Levy took over civil rights enforcement in the civil division. And under her leadership, our office our civil program became a model for all of the other offices to follow in the nation. And Judy did training for U.S. attorneys' offices across the country in how to start civil rights units and how to prosecute housing discrimination cases. She also handled a number of extremely successful and very large settlements and consent decrees that compensated the victims of housing discrimination, including the Whispering Woods case, which I think most of us know about. And I believe that record still stands. The $720,000 settlement in that case was and is still the largest settlement in a housing discrimination case based on race. So I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed working with Judy for these past 14 years and how much I'm going to miss that. Although we're all totally thrilled that she's now going to be on our federal district court bench along with Judge Lynn Parker. And although she had to leave early, I also want to give a shout out to our current U.S. Attorney, Barb McQuaid, who, like Saul, recognizes that civil rights enforcement has to be one of the top priorities for a U.S. Attorney's Office. Barb has demonstrated that in numerous ways and on numerous occasions during her years as a U.S. Attorney. And I think maybe the most important thing she did was to start a designated civil rights unit in our civil division, and she made Judy the chief of that unit. So she is someone who has just been extraordinarily supportive of all of our efforts, both on the civil side and criminal side. I also want to say a few words. Okay, talk about preparation. I took some notes here, but since I retired, I haven't figured out how to make my printer work. So my notes are in longhand. So we have yellow sheets here. All right, last but definitely not least, I want to say some words about the Fair Housing Center. Everyone in the room, I think, knows that the Fair Housing Center and Cliff Schrupp have been leaders in the fight for fair housing in this community for more than 30 years. Part of that leadership role has involved their being invaluable partners to us in our enforcement efforts in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I first met Cliff and Mike and Darlene, I know where Darlene is, back in, I think it was 1993 or 94 when we were working on the Parkwoods case. And that case, as I said, involved a large apartment complex. It was a race and familial status case. The complex was located in Allen Park. The evidence that we based our case on was largely evidence that was obtained through testing done by Fair Housing Center testers. And I have to say that these testers, who were trained and supervised by Cliff and the other folks at the Fair Housing Center, did such impressive work that basically after taking a few depositions, we were able to get a settlement. It was in the amount of $425,000, which at the time was the highest housing discrimination settlement that the federal government had ever been involved in. Fair Housing Center testers also played a huge role in the Marston case that I was involved in, and in many of the cases that Judy was involved in, including that record-setting settlement in the Whispering Woods case. Judy reminded me yesterday that Cliff himself actually did some testing in some of the design and construction cases that she handled. And in one of them, apparently, he went in and pretended to be measuring on behalf of a disabled relative. And in both of those cases, as in all of the cases in which the Fair Housing Center testers have been involved, the settlement gave major monetary damages to the victims of discrimination. Fair Housing Center has also been an important partner in terms of referring criminal cases to us. I think in both of the cases mentioned in my bio, the cross-burning case in Sumter Township and the hate threats made by Curtis Gottler in Livonia to his neighbors because they were showing their homes to African Americans and had sold their homes to African Americans. Both of those cases were brought to our attention by the Fair Housing Center, by Mike Olshan. So thank you for being a terrific partner in all of our enforcement efforts. I know we still have a long way to go in this fight for fair housing. The fight that we've all been involved in for a very long time. But when I look back over the past 20 years in which I've been involved in that fight, I also think there has been significant progress. I'm so proud that I got to be part of the contribution that the U.S. Attorney's Office in this district has made to the fight for fair housing. You're right, right? And I am just so incredibly honored to receive this award from the organization that has been leading that fight in this community for such a long time. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Wonderful partners and some great partners. And that's why we've been successful as we have been. But we do have a long, long way to go still. And Taslima will give us a little bit more music with her band, so enjoy the rest of the music and enjoy the rest of the food. And thank you so much for coming out to help us to honor our honorees. And thank you for your support.